What's up, guys? Welcome into Comic Book Food Chain, the channel that gives you perspective from across the comic book food chain, from a creator to a retailer to the pro collector. My name is Ant. Joining me today is my guy, Frank Gogol. How you doing, buddy?
What's going on?
I almost thought I was muted for a second. I had to look at my light.
I honestly assumed you were, and that only I could hear you for some reason. But here we are.
Here we are. And Yeezy Yee at the bottom here. Sir, how's your week?
My week has been crazy busy, but still having fun and glad I could show up.
Right on, right on.
My
all right, guys.
Acting crazy.
Your dog, dude. When are dogs not acting crazy? Mine's like biting my foot. So if you see me go like this every once in a while, swift kick to the face. Take care of that.
Your dog kicks you in the face. Wow.
The other way around, broski.
Don't take that from a pug.
She thinks she's tough. But again, welcoming everybody to the chat. Yeezy, who's hanging out with us today?
Oh, we see one of our favorites, 9 Square Inches. How's it going?
In the host?
I don't think we've met before. Incredible Collectibles, welcome in. Dan Barry, how's it going? So I'm sure people are. Yeah, I'm sure people are still like trickling in as we get started. So as we see you, we'll say what's up.
I want to give a double shout out to 9 Square Inches, who sent me a postcard to thank me for the books we sent him for winning whichever sub mark he won. I think it was one of the pitch ones, right? Nice. But much appreciation. That's very cool.
All right, guys. Well, before we get too deep into it, make sure that you share out the stream, invite your friends over. Of course, we're trying to get to some special milestone, guys. Do we know what that is going to be?
Let's bring up the slides.
Boom! Slides in your face. Well, today we're going over media, mega media companies. Obviously, you can look at the picture there and kind of guess which direction we're going to go with this speech. And there's a lot going on with that. All kinds of speculation driving this market, the shows, this and that, yada, yada. But before we get to the meat potatoes, where are we trying to get to?
We are on our way to 900 subs. Last I checked, we were hovering around 825. So we're ticking up a couple each week.
Yeah.
When we hit 900, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, we are going to give away a Sam Wilson Captain America #1 hip-hop cover, courtesy of Mr. Yee. He's donating that to the pool, and we want to give it to one of you guys. So if you're watching, and you're watching for the first time, and you're not subbed, hit the sub. For those of you who are watching and haven't hit the notification bell, hit the notification bell. We took a look at our analytics, and a smaller chunk of you are doing that. We want you to know when we're going live so you don't miss this, and so that you can be participating in the comments and have a shot at getting this cover when we give it away. Once we hit 900, we're going to be moving on to our sort of big prize, the 1,000 mark. And at 1,000, we're giving away a Canto #1. This is the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive edition. This is my personal copy. It was a gift to me from David and Drew. It's signed by them. This is optioned for an animated feature. So this book is just going to slowly tick up over time. And we want to get it into one of your hands. So like I said, if you haven't subbed, hit the sub. If you haven't hit the notifications, turn those on so you don't miss anything, and have your best shot at winning one or both of these books. We are going to let the same person win both of these books if the same person wins both of these books. So double your pleasure, double your fun. Is that the saying?
I like it. No, let's roll with that.
Nice. And then one last thing, and this is more of a me thing, but I know you guys are here to support Ant and Yee and me. I got a new book coming out the FOC is in 2 weeks. Right. This is my first paid as a comic book writer, non-creator owned book. It's a Power Rangers book, which is obviously one of my dream books. If you've been watching this show, I think it's probably been every other word out of my mouth since we started. But the FOC on this book is June 7th. It's 2 weeks from yesterday. So if you are watching and you're a Power Rangers fan, definitely let your comic shop know you want one of these books, either the cover A, the cover B, or one of the ratios. That Derek Chu cover, the 1/50, is my favorite by far. It looks sweet. So hopefully you guys can get your hands on one of those if it tickles your fancy. And then just if you're just a fan of the show and you want to support us, this is one way you guys can support me, even if you're not a Power Rangers fan. I read the proof copy of it that's going to print today. And honestly, I can tell you guys this is maybe the best thing I've ever written. And it is super accessible. So if you aren't a Power Rangers fan, this is still a really, really good story. It's going to be surprisingly more emotional than you guys are probably going to think it is. And it's going to hit a lot of really, really, really good beats. So like I said, cutoff is in about 2 weeks. Get to your LCS, call them, email them, shoot out Facebook message, whatever you got to do, let them know you want a copy. And I appreciate you all for the support. So
I think the last Power Rangers book I read was the crossover with TMNT. So actually, I'm probably gonna check this out.
Yeah.
I got one sucker. Yeah.
Well, and this is the whole point of this channel, guys. You guys are witnessing the growth. From me and myself as a retailer, I'm obviously going to carry these, and you got Frank Gogol putting out some great work here. I mean, it takes, we all know Frank, we've had a couple of these now, but it still takes a lot to say this is probably my best work and advertise it as such. So I'm really excited. I'm not a big Power Ranger person, mostly because I feel like I missed the boat on it, not because I can't get into it. So I'm pumped to read this just to see where this takes you next. And I'm looking forward to congratulations, man. This is really, really, really cool.
Much appreciated.
Absolutely. I want to welcome in some more people. Ashtrays, Comics and Collectibles. How's it going? Rob's Comics. Good to see you. Ultra Maximus. Welcome in
the house. But yeah, that's good stuff. Good news. Big time, guys. Make sure that you guys go and do all the things we're asking you to do. And remember, today's a roundtable discussion. We want you guys active in the chat, participate. We're going to read your thoughts. We're going to give you our thoughts. We're going to have some fun with the topic. But yeah, what are you guys thinking? You guys want to get into this?
Let's do it. Hit the video.
Let's go. All right, guys, the topic of the week. What were you going to say, Gogo? You look like you had something.
We forgot to mention that we bait and switched everyone. We said we were going to have Garrett Gunn on this week, and we swear to God we were. Garrett had a last-minute conflict, something he couldn't get out of, and that's fine. We love Garrett. We're going to have him on in the next couple of weeks to make up for it. But we had to come up with a new topic on the fly, and I think what we came up with is something that will definitely get me blacklisted from working at Marvel. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
We're going for DC also too, then, huh?
I mean, they're in flux right now. Maybe they'll miss this, as they switch over from AT&T to Discovery. Hopefully, I'll work at either. I'll work for whatever. Let's bring up the slide. All right, so this week, as you guys saw on the title card, we are talking about mega media companies. If you have seen Parks and Rec, they've got the joke in there when they do the flashbacks in the later season that there's like 7 companies left in America, and one of them is like ExxonMobil, Chipotle, because all the companies are merging and buying each other up, and that's sort of what the reality of it is. We had Disney buy Marvel about 10 years ago, and since then they've bought Lucasfilm and National Geographic, I think, ESPN, Hulu, like Fox. I mean, so it's the thumbnail kind of captures a lot of that. And then AT&T buying up Warner Brothers, and then by virtue of buying up Warner Brothers, they bought DC, and the DC getting sold off to Discovery. So there's a lot to talk about here and a lot to unpack. There's consequences and benefits to all of it, and we kind of want to dig into some of that, the good, the bad, the ugly, and sort of where we're coming at, because I think that we probably have differing opinions on this one. So let's cut back to the discussion mode. Let's dig in.
All right, let's go. So, where do you even want to kick this bad boy off? Because there's so much, like you said, there's a million angles we can attack this from.
I think the easiest way to kick it off is just high level, like yay or nay. Like, are you for this kind of stuff? Are you against this kind of stuff? And there's really only one right answer. I'm not going to tell you guys what it is, just so we can see who's awful and who's not. But do you believe in antitrust laws or not?
Oh man.
I just want to mention that. So Sony has bought up, what was it? It was Crunchyroll and Viz and all that, like to get all the exclusive anime rights. And then they're going through like court processes for being a monopoly or whatever. So, I mean, I think that's still like kind of relevant to this, even like, like, because anime is big money, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Like manga sells like millions of copies, like even though it's like a $15-$20 book versus like a comic, which is only, that's a whole separate conversation. But, with Sony like buying that and then them getting into trouble for that, for having like a control over just like anime, like where I think it's like Viz, Funimation, all kinds of stuff. And so, that's crazy to me that like only one company like controls all the anime in the world.
Yeah, that is nuts. Where my whole thing that throws me off is that when you're looking at all these guys are buying these properties to make money off of them, obviously, and you don't buy in, and properties don't switch hands as often if there's not long-term revenue to be made. which this is a very established market, I think. I know there's tons of room for growth in a million different directions you can take it in, but the money's there, it's consistent, and these guys are still switching hands. You know, it's like stocks. You want to get in low. There is no getting in low anymore. These things are worth money. So what is the potential they see down the road that they're like, all right, DC switched hands twice in the last 5 years?
Yeah. So I think that you're on the right path, but I would maybe frame it a little bit differently. Like it depends on who's buying, right? Like you're saying buy low, sell high, or whatever. For Disney, they bought Marvel for $4 billion, $4 billion, with a B, and that's pocket change to Disney. And since then, the Marvel movies have made, I think, something like the Marvel movies alone have made something like 15 in revenue after you take out the cost of creating them. It's closer to 20 billion in box office, and then when you take away what they had to pay to make them, it's something like 15 billion. So they've already in 10 years more than 3x what they spent, and that doesn't include merchandising rights, the comics, which are a very small part of the pie, toys, everything. So like, I mean, that was like the very definition of buy low for them. And the same thing with AT&T. Like they didn't even mean to buy DC. They bought Warner Brothers. They bought they're a telecom company that bought a media company that happened to own a comics publisher, which is why they ended up selling it off, I think, because they realized that they're a telecom company and they didn't really know what to do with it, right? They probably wanted HBO Max because that makes people spend money on the internet, which they're an internet company. But then they're sitting here like, what do we do with Batman? Like, and obviously you can see a lot of the confusion at DC over the last couple of years with huge downturns in employment for editors and the line shrinking and like seemingly the line being a lot of throwing darts at the wall right now and seeing what sticks. And then moving over to Discovery, which is an entertainment company, but is a reality entertainment company and not a fiction entertainment company. So like there's some really interesting stuff to think about there. But just going back to the original question, is this good or bad? As a reader, as a fan, I like when a larger company buys a smaller publisher because that means I'll probably get more of the thing I like, right? We've gotten more Marvel,
bigger budget and all that
on the whole scale over the last 10 years because they have a wallet behind them now. As a human who wants like people to be treated fairly and like not taken advantage of, like, it's a little sketchy, right? Like when a bigger company buys a smaller company and they start axing half the staff and then doubling the workload for the remaining staff. Like, I mean, there's some ethical stuff in there. As a writer, I feel like maybe it limits my opportunities. Like Marvel 10 years ago, I think I probably would have a better chance getting in the door. Now there's probably more people who have to say yes to a new writer getting hired. So like I'm kind of across the spectrum on this. If I had to pick one, the point of view that matters the most is getting work as a writer. And I don't love that it's harder, but I do love that maybe I can make a bigger splash because it'll have a bigger footprint. So it's, again, I'm kind of in the middle. Ant, you're muted.
Boom! There's my one talking while the mute was on. No, I'm kind of where you are. I'm kind of walking that line down the middle because when you bring in these guys, they're going to try and go outside the box, especially if it's not something they dealt with, which could be a lot of fun on the retail end. We've seen that with some other publishers, which we'll mention here shortly, where they're doing things that are. I mean, let's face it. This is comic collecting is almost like being a baseball fan. That sport's so historic and comics go back so far that there's a whole unwritten rules and laws to collecting, publishing, and lore and rules and yada yada. But then you bring in these companies that aren't rooted in that, and they're not going to pay all the tribute maybe necessary. So it could get pretty interesting. And that's going to bring in an influx of new people, which is new money for retailers. That's fantastic. But again, you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you. And those are the weekly collectors that read the books that are loyal and been around forever. So it's a nice fine line to walk between innovation and staying true to the roots of the game.
So are we mainly talking about like more of the production side, or are we talking about like more of like the cost side? Like
we don't have a roadmap for the conversation.
Okay.
I kind of wanted to leave it open because this is one where I think that our different viewpoints will really be highlighted, whereas sometimes we're kind of all on the same page. So I didn't want to manage this too much when I was making the outline.
Gotcha.
But if let's dig into like a specific part. So like Disney and Marvel, and then AT&T and DC are two very different situations, right? One is a media company buying another media company, right? So people who know about storytelling buying storytellers.
Mhm.
And then a telecom company, which has no business telling stories other than maybe commercials, who knows, buying a media company. And then, there's obviously like a gap in knowledge, right? The skills aren't immediately transferable the way it was with Disney and Marvel. So where do you guys think, I think I know the answer to this, but which do you think was the better deal? Everyone just say Marvel.
Marvel. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I mean, but that's what AT&T has traditionally done anyways, is just buy up a company and knowing that they would sell it off later, like after they cut out what they wanted.
Strip it for parts.
Yeah, strip it for parts and then sell the junk off to like whoever wants to buy it. Like, hey, I have this like property IP that like I want, or whoever wants. So like go ahead and buy it. And I don't think it's a bad move for Discovery either, because there's so many streaming companies coming up now, and then what they said is like, we're going to spend a bigger budget than what AT&T was spending.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good move for DC. And then, as long as they don't change up too much of the animation stuff, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I would say that you're kind of spot on, especially with the AT&T stuff, because a lot of people don't know this. Here's background on AT&T real quick, and I know this because I was in their field forever. But about 15 years ago, they were bought by a European company, and they bought the name AT&T. So you're talking about an investment company that came in to make dollars. You can see that in how they managed DC while they had it. And then once they figured out this isn't their niche, it's now gone and made hopefully in better hands from a creative aspect.
No, you're 100% right on that. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't have the firm numbers here, but if you parcel out what the Warner Brothers deal cost AT&T and like what DC's portion of that buying price was, they sold it at a loss.
Yep.
So Discovery was able to get it cheap, and now they're going to put more money into it, which is seemingly an equation for positive gain, right? My worry is as a consumer that AT&T didn't have DC long enough for them to even get their legs back under them. Right. And now they're going to go through the same cycle of tumultuousness again. Maybe it'll be less tumultuous this time because, like I said, Discovery is a storytelling business. Like they have at least some understanding. Maybe they'll just let it run its course for a while and see how things go before they start making changes, because like DC's barely had 2 years to figure out what they were doing. And it seems like they've just finally gotten going again, right? Like Future State was sort of a weird reset, and then everything that's come since then has, I think for the most part, been pretty positive. Normal publishing again, pretty good stories. The line is more diverse than it was, which I think is a huge positive. I definitely see more people talking about DC than there were 2 or 3 years ago. And they're doing really great stuff, like the James Tynion Nice House on the Lake.
Yeah,
was his biggest creator-owned launch, and it was a Black Label book. And this is a guy whose books sell hundreds of thousands of copies regularly, and this was his biggest one. So I feel like they're in a really good position, and like hopefully Discovery doesn't want to go in and fuck that up like right away. If it's not broke, why fix it?
Right.
Yeah,
no.
But I mean, as long as they don't make the same mistake like AT&T did and blow all their budget on the Snyder Cut. So
yeah, we did a whole episode on that. We had some feelings. If I could sum up those feelings, I think I'd say we all think they wasted money on the Snyder Cut. Whether it was good or bad is irrelevant. They have since released data about HBO Max subscribers, and the Snyder Cut did not move the needle at all. So in terms of money spent, it was all at a loss. Zack Snyder's ego was massaged, and we got a slightly better Justice League out of it. So there's that.
No, I think you're hitting it on the head here. So really, a lot of this debate is going to come from what's happening with DC, because Disney's nailing it. We've got some, it looks like a smart company is going to go after the anime market. And they already know what they're going to do with that. But what do you think that this fresh blood is doing to the collectability and the readability of the new comics that are coming in now?
I wonder how it's going to happen, right? Like, so DC had its editorial slashed by like half, and that's probably a conservative estimate. I think it's probably closer to 60%. And they're running on a skeleton crew, and they're putting out more books now than they were before. So it's half the staff, one something X the workload, which never a good situation, right? You don't want to overwork people. You want to work them at capacity, I guess.
Right.
So there's that. And then it seemed, so the market is in a weird place where it's a niche market. The older guys are aging out and dying. The younger people are a more diverse crowd where people like a good 10, 15, maybe 30% are spec and people who aren't collecting for the stories inside, but maybe they're art collectors, right? Maybe they're treating this more like baseball cards, which is a valid way to collect comics. Covers are awesome.
Yeah.
But I think we just got the formula down, like Marvel, DC, Image, a lot of the small publishers. We finally understand what the balance is, right? It could have been the 90s all over again, but it's being extremely well manicured this time around and seems to be sustainable. You get one really ballsy exec at Disney or at Discovery who thinks that they know better. They come in and change everything, and that could sink DC, right? Like,
yeah,
we're at a place where things are fragile because it's a very balanced ecosystem. So you make one wrong move and it's over.
Yep.
That's dramatic. That's dramatic, but I think that it's not wholly untrue.
Sure. I always look at this situation when we started talking about it. I was thinking, do you guys play sports games, right? On your PlayStations, Xboxes, whatever. Do you know when you go into like franchise mode and you have the option, you could be a player, a coach, or an owner. If you guys select owner, typically there's a couple options. You can be a fan, or you can be a businessman. They actually say this, and that, it differs on
franchise mode.
Yep, exactly. So you can pick what angle you want to come from. And that's what makes me nervous, is that it's a lot of business owners that are coming in to own these properties. They're not necessarily fans. They don't know the backstory of a lot of stuff. And what direction are they going to take it in? And that makes me a little nervous with certain properties. Like you said, you get that exec says, I don't know anything about Batman, but I know business and I know how to get people to buy stuff. So let me do this. And they go into left field, spinning circles, chasing their tail. And you're like, okay, what happened to my stuff?
Sure. I mean, the equivalent, like, ridiculous analogy would be your water heater breaks. I hear that's happened to some people I know recently. And you need to have a plumber come out or an HVAC guy, right? But then you're like, the dude down the street who's a lawyer is like, no, I can do this. I know how to do this. And he knows nothing about fixing fucking water heaters. He comes in, he tries to fix your water heater, it doesn't work. And it's like the most avoidable disaster in the world, but because people who think they know better are in positions to make decisions, you get bad decisions. Is that going to happen? I don't know. Could it happen? Yeah,
we hope not. Yeah, that's totally doable. I mean, who doesn't make that mistake constantly? Everybody's always trying to save money, and everybody knows better on most things. They feel like you can do it yourself, and that's what you're saying with this exec or whoever is like, hey, I got this.
Yeah,
but do you?
Yeah. So I mean, I just wanted to point out real quick. When I was getting back into collecting comics, Rebirth was just starting back up again.
Yeah.
So you launch titles, blah blah blah. You're like, I was pretty excited to see the price go down on the comic, but then and it was exciting to read new stories or same characters we're familiar with. But then after a year of reading a certain title, I kind of got bored of it. And where I just didn't care. And then I kind of feel like AT&T knew they were about to strip this away, with the launch of Future State, where it's we're going to cut down the titles and each issue is only getting 2 issues, and the best ones are going to continue on until they pass the torch to someone else. You know what I mean?
Yep. I wonder if that was a part of it too, because it does seem like they cleared the mess, kind of put it on a straight path, and then it was like a smooth handoff. Well, we don't know if it's smooth, but it's like, here you go. We've got a plan. Here's a plan. Here's the paperwork. Here's a game plan, and you go from here.
Yeah. So it's your problem now, not ours. You can hire whoever you want to do this. That's what it kind of seems like to me. But I mean, who knows? But I mean, it could be good. It could be a disaster. We'll find out, I guess, in the next few months.
So I've got a sort of sideways concern.
Okay.
I've mentioned a few times that Discovery is a reality television show company, and not so much in the sense of like Real Housewives of wherever the fuck, but they do have some sort of,
so like Batman's going to be building tree houses for Shaq or something.
Sure. Or I mean that's one ridiculous option. But my thought is these are people who excel at telling sort of over the top, very melodramatic stories, which is not exactly the DNA of comic books. There's some of that in there for sure. X-Men in the 80s for sure was a lot of that. But are we going to get people with sensibilities for sensationalism sort of directing the line at some point? Like, are we going to so comics is extremely event driven right now, and events make tons of money. Like I know you as a retailer love events because they make a ton of money. Does it make for the best stories? No. Create a lot of onboarding opportunities for new readers? Yes. But do people stay if the stories are bad, right? Like there's a really interesting balance you have to strike there to make that work. And if you get people who lean too hard into that, you're going to end up with bad stories that don't bring in new readers and make new readers sour. And that's a huge concern because it means less dollars for you, less good books for you to buy, and less opportunities for me to make the books. Like that's a bad scenario for every inch of the food chain.
Yeah, absolutely it is.
It's a hugely realistic thing that could happen. We don't have any information right now, though. So like that's part of the problem.
Yeah, no, you're spot on with that because you're right. Minis, I think, minis and macros, I think, are kind of the way of the future because that's a jump in point for anybody. But if they don't nail it, that residual money won't be there for them, and that'll hurt. It'll go down to what you're saying. They're cutting down on staff because they're not selling enough books, or they're cutting down on stories, or they're getting rid of talent. I mean, Jim Lee walking away from DC, that's a big deal. That's the name.
Did that happen? Or is that what you're saying if that happened?
If that happened. I don't know if he's officially done it. I know he was on his way. He had to finish up some projects.
He was on as co-publisher before the AT&T stuff. And then I think that they kept him on as co-publisher, but his workload was scratched to almost nil. And then I haven't heard anything in a while about what he's doing there. He's still towing the company line. So
yeah,
we'll have to see. But then at the same time, when's the last time Jim Lee put out a comic? How many new readers care about Jim Lee? This is something I think about a lot. Jim Lee was a huge draw in the 90s and the early 2000s, and it's really an event in publishing when he is the artist on a book. But it's happened once or twice in the last decade. And the comics market cycles several times a decade, right? The audience that's reading today wasn't reading 5 years ago, wasn't reading 10 years ago. Not the vast majority of it. Just think of all the times that you stopped reading comics and came back to it. Everybody does that. So I don't know how big a draw Jim Lee is for the modern younger audience, but at the same time, he still counts for something.
Well, yeah, because you got to have that figurehead that's shaking hands and kissing babies. That's just a part of the game. Again, I'm going to reference sports a lot, and my son has no idea who Randy Johnson is, but he won a World Series with Arizona, and they bring him out every once in a while, throw a pitch, and like I said, throw some high fives and all that shit. And these kids don't have it. The kids that are spending their money now have no idea who he is, but you need those guys.
It's an awesome picture that fucking hit that bird.
This is really important for me to point out. As a Red Sox fan. He went to the Yankees and cut his mullet off, and he's never had my respect ever since.
He was on the Astros. He was on the Astros too, and this is when we were still in the National League, so he had to learn how to bat.
Yep. Super duper side note: I ran into Dustin Pedroia this Sunday.
Oh wow!
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I didn't say anything to him. I just kind of did one of these because I don't want to be that guy that's trying to shake your hand like I know you. But yeah, there you go. Ran into a Red Sox.
That's my dream. So I saw an interesting comment in the comments that I thought was worthwhile kind of digging into that a little bit. For a little bit, right when DC first bought Warner Brothers, there was rumors of a campaign for fans to crowdfund to buy DC from them. And there was a lot of debate, and this is the question that was asked in the comments. Would it be a positive or a negative if DC was fan owned? It would be a hard negative to me, right? So you've got a spectrum, right? And on one end, you have a telecom company that excels at everything but storytelling, who would do not a great job probably of running a company that is based on storytelling. Then on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you have a bunch of folks who love stories but aren't skilled, likely not skilled in running a company that tells stories, right? It's two different kinds of lack of experience. Ideally, if in a perfect world, a book publisher, Random House, I don't know any other book publishers, I'm sorry, would buy DC. Right, people with publishing experience, infrastructure for distribution, with marketing bankroll, who have a reputation for delivering printed, published products, like they would be the ideal. Like I love that Marvel, when they decided to leave Diamond for distribution, went to Penguin Random House. Those are people equipped for this job. Unlike a group of people who love something who don't know anything about publishing, or unlike a very rich telecom company who don't know anything about publishing. As a fan who is also a creator, I would love to own part of DC. If it means I get to write Batman and that's the only way I can write Batman, that's great. But that's not a good reason to buy a publishing company.
Not if you want it to go long term.
Exactly.
A big part, and again, this is super duper gray. This doesn't apply to anybody because you always make comments and people go, always talking about me directly. This is where a lot of the companies like mine thrive, is because this is a very fan focused hobby, and a lot of these upstarts, they're fans and they make decisions based as being fans, and that can hurt you because when you get into the retail end of it, my job is to make money, so I can keep producing comics. I told Laura this today. When it comes to Marvel and DC books, we should do a whole episode on this. My creative mindset is two different things between creating a cover for a Marvel or DC book versus an independent cover.
Sure.
Because I've got to make money in each individual market. So I've got to be very specific on what I'm looking for. And I have certain freedoms on one item than I wouldn't have on another. So you get these fans out there and go, oh, this would be great. This is fantastic. And you're the only one that gets it. You're not going to make any money.
Yeah. Well, that's something I have to think about when I do covers for my books. Like we've talked about this a bunch of times. What I like in a cover is not what most people like in a cover. And I could either sell 10 copies to people like me or 100 copies to people who like the mass appeal thing.
Yes.
But I want to go back to something you just touched on. You mentioned about fans becoming decision makers. So I don't know how many people watching right now sub to James Tinian's newsletter. I do, because that man's a fucking genius and he's doing a lot of the hard work thinking about things that need to be thought about. Yeah. And he has, I don't want to call it a theory because it's not a theory, but he's got a hypothesis and breakdown of sort of the history of comics as sort of generations. And essentially it's most comics started in the pulp generation, the 20s to 30s. And those are the people who created like the first generation of comic books, right? See, that's when you got your Batmans, your Supermans, the very early stuff. And then the second generation of creators came in, and they didn't grow up on this stuff, but they were more educated, for lack of a better word. They were looking to make higher brow stuff, so the stuff got more sophisticated. Yep. Right? By the time you get to the third generation of people working on Superman or Batman, you have people who grew up on it, and they're fans who come in to make the decisions. And then that's when you get the stuff in the 50s that really was sort of a step backwards in terms of tone and growth of ideas. And like, yeah, I'm paraphrasing all of this, and like James could talk about this much more intelligently than me, but part of what he's getting at is when fans come in, you don't get good business decisions. You also don't get people pushing the boundaries of everything. You get people doing more of what they liked, which can be reductive, right? Look at something like Ultimate Spider-Man. Brian Bendis was not a Spider-Man fan. He came in and rebooted Spider-Man and did it in a way that was really accessible, really fresh, very modern. But if you had brought somebody in who was a Spider-Man fanboy, you would have just got sort of like a best of, right? Like the greatest hits kind of remixed. And it wouldn't have been as satisfying or as good, and probably wouldn't have sold well. And that's like a garbage example that I'm just like pulling out of thin air. But like there's something to the idea that the people who have to make decisions about these things can't be too invested. And this is something I had to deal with writing Power Rangers. I'm a huge Power Rangers fan. Look at all this bullshit behind me. But I had to go into that job saying, what's a good story? What's going to make money? What's going to make readers happy? What are my storytelling sensibilities, and then last but not least, worry about what I would want, like as a fan, which was helpful, but I couldn't rely solely on that because I would have got a comic that I want, but not 100 other people want, right? It would be the cover scenario all over again, where people who like what I like it, but then everybody else doesn't.
Yeah. It's like when you go to a restaurant, they give you salt and pepper with your dinner. Not everybody likes the same level of salt. So when you're writing that issue 1, it's almost like you got to leave it open so you can make necessary adjustments to turn the project to people's specific appetites to continue them to buy. Because like I wonder if there's like a rhythm on something. As a writer, do you notice that you need to get to a certain number of sold copies? Like your goal is to sell so many up to book 3 to hook enough readers in where they'll finish the run, something like that?
Yeah. So it differs from creator owned to IP work. Sure. With IP work, you don't get any of those numbers, and the company purposefully, most companies, I can't speak for everyone, but everyone I've talked to for the most part has said, your editor will tell you that's not your job. That is marketing's job, right? Your job is to tell a good story. Don't worry about that. To you, it doesn't matter if it's 1 copy or 1 million copies, right? Your job is to tell the story. I'm a very data-driven person on my creator-owned stuff. I do have the numbers. I keep spreadsheets. I have, X over X every news series goals. Like I know that I did 5,000 units on this book. I want to do 7,000 on the next one. I want to do 10,000 on the next. I want to constantly be growing. But when you're brought on to do a property that somebody else has owned, there are smarter people with more access to the tools to figure that out. And that's outside of the scope of the job. Will I ask what the numbers on Edge of Darkness are? I will try not to, but I probably will want to, just because that's how my brain works. But really, it's but that's just like a smaller version of the larger difference between creator owned and IP, right? On creator owned, everything matters to the creator because I paid for everything. It's whether I see a return on that or not is super important on how many units sell. And a good example of the difference is on a creator-owned book, I reach out to retailers. I reach out to 500 to 1,000 retailers and tell them about this book and make sure that they want to buy it. Whereas with Power Rangers, I haven't had to reach out to a single retailer. Have I mentioned it in passing? Yes, but like it's not my job. It's not my responsibility. And it's honestly, it would be bad if I did, right? That's somebody else's job. I'd be stepping on toes.
Right. I mean, all that completely makes sense. What the most interesting part of this whole conversation so far is you've got the 2 top boxes up here, figuring out ways to get the bottom box to buy more.
I mean, that's the goal, right? Like we live in a capitalist society and publishing is a capitalist game.
Yeah. So Yi, now that you've heard this, you've heard the creator and the retailer go back and forth on how we would choose to make money. How do you choose to spend money after gathering all this information?
How do I choose? First off, is the material good? What hooked me into this and what's going to continue, for me to keep going into a run,
Right.
And then second is going to be like cover appeal. Like you said, like, do I like this art on this cover? Like, does this draw my attention to me? Do I see potential in this? Like, is it going to, if I ever have to sell it, will it be resellable? Or is it going to end up in the dollar bin? Stuff like that. So, I mean, that somewhat matters to certain collectors. If I enjoyed it enough, like, I don't care what the value is, All
right. So all the things you just said, you're a huge Department of Truth fan. Can you map those needs to Department of Truth and kind of walk us through how you became a fan and how what hooked you and like how that was the perfect package for you as a creator?
Okay. So, had one of my favorite writers already on it. It has Tynion on it. So
that's one of the things I wanted to get at is that.
Yeah. So right off the bat,
talent.
Yeah. So right off the bat, like that had a good sign for me. Second of all, Second of all, it was about conspiracy theories. And I used to growing up, I used to listen to Coast to Coast all the time. Like that shit is hilarious to me. Discussing that is a whole nother thing. So, and then, so what almost like scared me away from it was the interior art. So I looked on previews and like I got a little sample of it and I was like, kind of like, like, I don't know about this. Like, do I care? Like, kind of, but am I going to enjoy like seeing this art throughout the entire time? I don't know. And then the first issue dropped, and then I saw like, oh, there's a 1 in 100 that's playing a homage to Something Is Killing the Children, and then Something Is Killing the Children is playing a homage to Department of Truth. So I was like, all right, that's cool. Like, do I buy 100 copies to get like the incentive and like all the incentives that follow down below it? Like, I don't know. And I decided ultimately not to, and just like kind of like cherry picked like where I could, because like, you know, if you ever kind of followed the prices of Department of Truth, like it shot up pretty high like when it first came up, and then especially like the secret variant. But then like 2 or 3 weeks later, prices dropped like really fast on that, and then like the series kept on going, but like it kept on building like its readers and followers, and then prices started increasing, especially like I think right about the time it got announced that it was being optioned to a TV series or movie or whatever. Is a TV series? Is that official?
It's in consideration for I think it's been picked up and not announced at this point.
Okay.
There was a bidding war apparently, and it makes a ton of sense that there would be.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, and then as you all probably know from what I pick on what we're eating, I do enjoy picking up the later printings for certain titles, and Department of Truth is one I've definitely picked up. I think I've picked up like 5 copies each of 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th prints of issue 1, and then like even some of the later issues like 2, 3, like where it's like I went into the 2nds and 3rds. But that's just me like kind of, I guess, like speculating, I guess, a little bit, like, but at the same time, not a lot of people were buying those 2nd and 3rd prints compared to, because like the 4th print came out like months later when it got announced that it got optioned. So
yeah.
All right, so let's tie this back and close up. No, I was going somewhere, and you did exactly what I needed you to do.
You threw the alley-oop.
Exactly, and now
bring it home.
Now I'm going to dunk it like one of the Celtics. Oh wait, they lost. Fucking Celtics. So all right, but so what essentially what you just broke down for us is your approach, like how you consider buying a new title, the things that you think about, and some of the things you hit on: art, who's writing, how collectible it is. These are really important decisions that go into creating the book, right? And then, so if we have people running these companies or making decisions about how they're run who don't understand what makes comics work, will comics continue to work? Like if Image got bought and the next James Tynion book that came out there didn't scratch those itches for you and took a different approach, would you be as likely to pick it up? It's hard to say, right? Like, yeah, you want to lean towards no because it's going to be different, but it could be better. Chances are it's not, right? Comics have been around for about 80 years, a little more than that, and like the foundations of it are pretty honed, and like we kind of get the inner workings of it. That doesn't mean something outside the box like Bad Idea or Tico can't work, but I don't know. But it's interesting. Like we're in a weird time where everything is folding in at the corporate level, right? We have our publishers being bought up. Valiant got bought up. That's how we ended up with Bad Idea. I say ended up like it's a bad thing. That's how Bad Idea ended up becoming a company. Valiant is now owned by a foreign entity. I think they're Japanese, maybe Korean, but you know, a non-US company bought up Valiant as an IP essentially, and they haven't quite been the same since that happened, right? Like the people who were running the company left. They started Bad Idea, and I don't know a lot of people who read Valiant. I know that there are diehards for Valiant, but like it just seems like the buzz is gone. Like editors are leaving the company. Heather Antos just moved over to IDW. So I don't know, but it just feels to me like in the grand scheme of things that smaller publishers being bought up by bigger companies that might not know how to do the best with them isn't maybe the best move. It's definitely bankroll. It's definitely exposure. But I don't know. It's going to be a balance. I think Disney's obviously gotten it right. I think Marvel is doing pretty good. Maybe not as good as they were doing 10 years ago, but like still very good. And obviously the opportunities for the expanded non-comic stuff around those properties is killing it, right? The movie's
Sure.
$15-20 billion, right? So anyway, that's kind of, unless you guys have some final thoughts, I think we can leave it there. I want to kick it over to our fun segment, because a lot of what we just talked about is going to play a big role in the fun segment tonight. And I'm pretty excited to get into it.
Yeah, my final thought on this whole thing is God, I'm referencing tons of sports tonight, but if we can get a good quarterback, it doesn't matter who owns it, as long as we get a good, smart, competent quarterback to oversee the decision making and roll these things out, I think they'll do well. But it's all about who that person is and what direction they want to take it in, and they surround themselves with talented people that know more. And they're able just to put the pieces in play and let them go, let them do what they do. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I'm going to start watching names to see who's going to take over the creative parts of this, and do a little background checking, and then I can get excited about who's in charge of who's calling the shots.
D, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say that DC really bit the pooch, like when they launched the Black Label. They had the chance to really change the game for them. This is meant for adults. It's not for kids. Da 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 da. And then they just watered it down. It
seems like it's ramping back up though.
Yeah. It's starting to ramp back up a little bit, but
they came out of the gates nice. I mean, even their artist choice, like Liber Mejo on Batman Damned. Mm-hmm. I didn't even need text in that damn book. That thing was awesome. And
there was enough bat dong in that book for everyone.
Dude, right?
9 square inches of bat dong.
I mean, they should have kept on, writing that hype train that hey, they're going to push the envelope now. And then they just kind of gave up.
Yeah, as a business owner, and they should know this above everybody else, you're going to piss somebody off.
Right. No matter what.
You can't make everyone happy. And I think that's what's biting Disney a little bit in the butt right now, is they're trying to make too many different parties happy at once.
Yeah. And not focus on making good stories.
Yep.
All right. So if we're going to leave it at that, let's bring back the slides and we'll go into, let me click on the thing. All right. So tonight's fun segment is we are going to sort of draft style build our own publishers from the ground up, how we would set them up, what our strategies would be, who we would enlist as talent, and just kind of use what we've talked about tonight to kind of figure out what we would want to do. And I think this will be a really interesting conversation, because I'm going to have a very different perspective than Ant, who's going to have a very different perspective from Guy. And I think that we're all going to maybe be thinking about the other in a different way. I definitely would be thinking about how to please retailers differently than Ant will. So we're gonna sort of answer a couple of high level questions about how we would set these things up. There's no right answers. These are all hypotheticals. But I think the virtue here is that it's going to highlight the differences in how we, as the different parts of the food chain, would think about these things. And I think that's valuable insight.
Yes.
So let's just kick it right off. The first thing that we're going to be thinking about is the market. What market are we trying to court? How are we trying to court them? I'm going to lead the discussion. I'll go first so the other guys can kind of, I made this up, so I want to give them something to play off of. So for market, I'm thinking, who are my buyers and who am I catering to? And the logical person who wants to cast the widest net in me says that it's going to be the young readers, right? In 1961 or the late 30s, 40s, and 50s, when DC was in its infancy and Marvel was in its infancy, they courted young people. And those are the people, even though that market is shrinking, who are still buying those books today, right? That the easiest way to build for long-term is to start with the youngest people. And personally, I think that you can do YA, but without having it be so inspired as a lot of the YA stuff is. Like, YA tackles a lot of really heavy topics, and that's really positive. But if I were starting a company, I would want to go with something a little bit more palatable. I would want to target 7 or 10 to 13 to 18, like somewhere in that range. I'm not really sure what it would be. But I would want to make books for people who are, I want to train them to be into this product. So that way, when they age up 10, 15 years from now, they start working full-time jobs, have disposable income, they continue to be fans and continue to spend that money. While at the same time rolling in new groups of young people over that same time period, like create a sort of a rolling audience, if you will.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does.
It makes sense to me.
No, it totally does. So you're going more for the no risk it, no biscuit. You're setting your market up knowing that your income's not going to grow until further down the road because you've got to train your audience.
Yes, exactly. But I don't want to train them. Well, we'll get into this in the next one. So let's hop to you, Ant. What do you got?
All right. So I'm going to take a step up. If I had to pick a market to focus on, it's going to be your 30 to 45 range. That's a knowledgeable market. So you got to know what you're doing. You got to be super professional. But again, that's consistent income to build off of. The problem with my approach, the pro to my approach is the money's there. The con to my approach is it's very specific. You got to give them exactly what they want or the money won't stay.
See, I see what you're getting at. But in publishing, we've got a phrase, like I'm a huge part of this publishing, but something that's been said to me by other people and publishers in specific is you're worrying about hundreds and leaving thousands on the table. Right. So I think what you're getting at is kind of tapping into the collector's market, right? The variant collectors, the people who are looking at the art, who are going to spend $20 a book, and you're going to maximize your dollars on an item by item basis, and you're going to make quick cash.
Right.
But that's not sustainable, right? That you can't repackage those goods in a way that makes them resellable. Those are essentially one-time sales and then they're gone, right? You get a cover for something that's killing the children 16, you sell 1,000 copies of it, and then you can't do anything with that again, right?
Right. But see, and this is where I come from. Let's just say I'm working on 6 projects, right? And I've got 2 projects that I know are home runs because they stay true to the roots. I'm trying to make your footprint here. You're laying your base. Sure. And you sell those, and then you tank the next 4. Then your next month, you're only able to afford 3 projects. So unless you're knocking them out of the park one after another, you have to have income rolling in on the regular, whether that's a safe project or not, in order to make the next project. Because that would your idea is like I said, there's no risk it, no biscuit. But if you don't hit on those, you're out of business in a year.
Well, and when we get into the next question, I'm going to address that because that's part of my business plan.
Okay, cool. So yeah, that is mine, is to lay the base work to create regular income. And then once you have that consistency, and I've trained this specific audience that this is how we deliver, then we get creative once we have money to play with and burn.
So essentially, I'm starting Oni Press and you're starting Diamond Collectibles.
Yeah, kind of.
All right. Yay, what do you got?
So I think I would try to target the 18 to 30-year-old market, just because that's not really a market that's really focused on. It's, to me, it's either what y'all presented. You're either starting at the young age, or you're starting with what the market is currently, which is, I would say, probably 30 to 65 right now is probably the current majority of the market in comics. Can we agree to that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
More or less, with some spots here and there.
Some sprinkle in.
Yeah. So I think if we had something that would appeal to I guess someone that's getting out of the YA to that's in college and stuff like that, something that they can just enjoy during downtime or whatever. I think that would be a market that could end up growing into the 30-year-old market, where it's oh, now I have disposable income and I can start buying these bigger items, whatever.
So what you're saying is you listened to both of us and took the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Love
See,
it.
and here's what scares me about
that anyways.
Here's what scares me about the younger market is their attention span. I mean, I've got younger kids and they don't know what commercials are. I mean, they know what they are on YouTube. And they hate waiting week to week for episodes. They'd rather binge it all at once. It's get it now. Their attention spans are this big. So that's what worries me about focusing on an 18 to 25-year-old market.
See, and then I'm going to steal one of your other ideas and just do a miniseries the entire time.
And see, then you're golden.
And then, yeah, and then if it does good, then I can bring it back with part 2, part 3, whatever. Or
Easy's Minis publishing.
See, and I think that you're thinking too contemporary, right? You're thinking about how things are today and not how things are going to be. We're in a Netflix generation, right? Everything is instant gratification. You drop 8 episodes, you can drop 8 episodes in a day. But look at how things are moving. Look at how Disney's doing stuff. Moving back to the week to week, right? It's still on demand all day, but WandaVision 9 weeks, Falcon and the Winter Soldier 6 weeks. And Hulu's been doing the same thing for the whole time Hulu's been around, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, but they're retraining their audience.
But I think they're retraining them to be patient. We're in a place where people don't want to be patient anymore and they're trained not to be. But I think that the media companies are learning that there's value in the longer cycle, right? Waiting a week for an episode means people are talking about it for a week rather than people are watching all 8 episodes of Stranger Things and only talking about the show for a week. People were talking about WandaVision for 9 weeks straight. Right. Like there's something to that. So I don't know that the instant gratification thing is going to last so much longer. I could be wrong. I don't have anything solid on that. It's something I'm noticing. All right.
As Mighty MLV would say, let the beat build.
Let the beat build.
All right. So we talked about where we would go, what markets we would corner. Let's talk about format. How are we going to present this content? What kind of approach are you taking? For me, I know that it hasn't been super popular here, especially not in comics, but I'm thinking I would go the manga route, meaning that I would do longer books slightly less often, but I would focus a lot on repackaging, right? So if I was going to launch a slate of books for 2022, I would start with 4 books. And I would do 1 in April, or 1 in January, 1 in February, 1 in March, 1 in April. And these would be trade size books, like, a full story, full arc. Maybe digest sized, maybe traditional comic book size, like a trade paperback. I'm not sure about that. Because I think that 1 would work in the interim. I think 1 can work a lot better in the long term. But I would do essentially graphic novels that are an arc. And I would do them quarterly, and I would have 1 come out for 4 months. And then when the next cycle of 4 months comes, the second volume of the first book drops. Month 6, the second volume of the second book drops, and I'd be rolling over. So essentially I'm telling 3 arcs for each book over the course of a year, right? So that's 3 trades. Then when the next year comes, we do the same thing, but those first 3 trades get collected as a 3-volume fat trade. Right. So first printing is single arcs. Second printing is like kind of like year 1, and like constantly trying to repackage that content and like make more money off of the same art and writing, because that's the lowest overhead, right? As long as those books sell, assuming they sell, I spend X and I make X plus Y back in year 1, X plus Y plus Z in year 2. And that's more money to grow and scale the line if I choose to do that. Part of my format is going to be focusing on quality, though. I want to make fewer books, but I want them to be good. Like I kind of want to take the TKO approach in that way. Yeah. Right. They do waves of 4 books or 3 books, and everyone is a home run. Not everyone's going to be for everyone, but everyone is a good fucking book. And I think that's the right move. But I think something that is longer and serialized, like there are like 300 volumes of Dragon Ball, and people are still reading that shit 30 years later. There is obviously a way to make this work. So continuity, but not a shared universe.
Yeah. That's see, I would be comfortable with that if you could sign, like you said, and this isn't a perfect scenario, that if you got James and Donnie to be your exclusive writer on those stories.
Hang on to those thoughts, because our next question is going to be about talent.
Okay. So that my format would be, oh man, I don't want to break too much out of tradition, just because again, you're talking about an established market where you're talking 80 years of history. So once you get in and start rocking the boat too much and messing with format, I think that turns off your old money, which your old money is your consistent money. I would probably still scale it down. Again, go with the quality aspect of it, but it would still be more traditional. It would be closer together only because you can pivot that way. If I put out a number 1 that I'm thinking this is going to be golden and it tanks, issue 2, I can pivot a little bit and get it more on track. Where like a one shot, it is what it is. So yeah, it would be more now money, not long-term money based off old IPs. As they process, we'll go through them faster, but it's a way to keep consistent flow. So that would be my approach. Stay more traditional to it and leave more room for error so that you could pivot and stay on track as you grow long-term.
All right. So since I'm trying to get the 18 to 30-year-old market, I think I would go with a digital format at first. Start off with like either an app,
That's cool.
Something, like maybe even like give out a free, comic like within that to get them hooked on it, on the series or whatever. And then you have to subscribe to get other stories. And then if I was showing up to like, conventions to promote this, then I would do a limited run of like one of the best titles that, that 1,000 people have read, but there's only 200 of this physical hand copy. And then eventually like sell like either trade paperbacks or even print out the series if it was good enough.
I hate that you just said that because I have like a great idea and it wouldn't apply to what I said now. So what if somebody did like an app and you got digital copies to read, but you had to pay a subscription. And at the end of the run, you receive a trade paperback as part of your subscription, the entire physical copy.
I think that you're going to run into a problem, right? So American readers, at least, where we're going to be making money right now, have not taken to digital comics the way other parts of the world have. Younger people in insanely in disproportionate numbers to older people, but older people still make up the largest part of the market, right?
Right.
Digital comics accounts for 10% of the whole comics market. So like, I don't know that would work. The other thing you're assuming is that if people read digitally, they're going to want to trade. And if they're reading digitally, that tells me they don't want a physical product. So I don't know. I mean, it could work. I think that if you had 100% of your digital readership, maybe half or 15 or 10% of them would be interested in a physical copy, right? Because there's a reason they're reading digitally. Unless it's only available digitally, which is the reason I read some stuff digitally, because I can't get it in print. But I might be getting too insular on that. I might be thinking about myself too much. I do want to double back on my format a little bit and say that I would probably go the TKO route and do some chapter serialized issues, but I would do them more for the collector's market, right? TKO offers digital, trade, and print on demand. You can get it if you want it. I think that a better way to do that is to do almost what they did with Wind at Boom, right? It was going to be an OGN, but COVID hit and they had to pivot and they had to make something happen. So they broke it into chapters and released it in single issues too. I'm leaning into the OGN, the trade paperback format, but I know that there's a collector's market. So maybe I make 1,000 copies of my 6-issue mini and I sell those, and those are collector's items, right? For the people who care about that stuff. And they all have great covers from an awesome artist, and they're premium items, right? That's a way to kind of satisfy what Ant was talking about earlier and kind of make the money up front, but also still run the line in a way that I think has long-term legs.
Wait, wasn't Wind, didn't that start out as a trade paperback and then they print it into individual comics?
Yeah, that's essentially what I'm saying. It's like my format was going to be quarterly trades essentially for a set line of books. But to make some money up front, tackle the collector's market, I would do what TKO does and offer the chapters as single issues, but make them collector's items, not something that is unlimitedly on demand. Right. So imagine if you can get the first 5 issues of Department of Truth in a collector's bundle with sick art, and it's limited to 1,000 copies, and you can only get it from me at conventions. Right. That's a unique item that, again, is repackaging this content that exists and makes it X plus Y plus Z plus XX profitable, right? It's another way to get blood from that stone.
Yep. All right. What's the next question here?
All right. So the last thing I thought that we could talk about is talent. Who would, if we could bring on 3 writers and 3 artists to launch our lines, who would they be and why? And since I don't think we need any kind of like description of what this is. I think that let's start with you because you're the one who makes these decisions the most out of all of us. So because you do a lot of exclusives for Bird City. So how would you approach this? What 3 writers, what 3 artists, and why?
Honestly,
and pretend you have a budget, right?
Okay.
I don't know what the budget is, but it's not unlimited.
So I was gonna say, again, completely retail. I have my favorites. I don't even care. I would put it into the market's hands and see, and kind of maybe go with these are people I have access to. Who do the fans like, and then pursue those people. I don't know if I have, because I don't care. I like, if I want to say Tinian, I can say Tinian. But I want to sell what people want.
We're all going to say James,
right?
Tinian.
And that's what I'm saying. You can throw Momoko. We work with Greg Horn a lot. I can grab all these names, but it would be more, you tell me who you guys want, and I'll pursue those people because you're willing to spend money on those people. I know that's super generic, but
if you're starting a company, you don't have that data yet, right? You can't say what worked and what hasn't worked. You can draw deductions based on what worked for Marvel, but you're not doing what Marvel does, right? You've already set your format and your market, and it's not the same. So I wouldn't assume that the same things are definitely going to work. But that's not the question. Who are the 3 you would pick and why?
Gun
to your head.
Gun to my head. Well, I'm going to pick writers to sell. So let's just say we throw like the Tinians, the Donny Cates, Greg Horn is a fantastic seller for me. He's gifted in art.
Dang, what kind of budget you got, man?
I know, right?
I forgot your diamonds.
That's it.
Diamond collectibles.
Collectibles right here, guys. I would go with like photorealism artists if I don't have to stick a name to it, just because that seems to do pretty well, especially with DC and Marvel stuff. People want their characters to look like what they're supposed to look like.
Are you talking like Alex Ross?
Yeah, Alex Ross. Even You could throw Gardner in the mix. There are some gorgeous, talented artists out there, and they only do well in like indie exclusives because they can stretch the envelope on interpretation of art. Where I could hit up Greg and say, hey, I want to do an X-Men book, and he's going to give me some badass X-Men characters. So it would definitely be more mainstream driven for me because I know I can sell it.
All right, what do you got? I'm going to go last so I can say the right answer.
Okay. I'm going to go with Ashtray in the comment section. Scotty Young, like, that's a double talent right there. He's a writer and he's an artist. Like, so, you have one name right there that you could just do. You could utilize him for either or. And then I think I would try to get like people from like Kickstarters and stuff like that, since like most of their stuff is already on that digital format. And then they also have like access to publisher, like printing publishing.
So I'm going to point out that if I would start real quick. If you hire a writer-artist combo, you're slowing down your production, right? If they're writing and drawing the book, that means you're putting out fewer books, and that is a business consideration.
Right. So I would use them for either or. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't put all my eggs to hey, create another Middle West? Is that yeah? So I wouldn't want him to do his own create your own
you'd look at the IP and say, okay, you write this or you draw this.
Exactly.
But you've got him in your pocket for an either or. So you're double. Right. So it's like you bought a switch hitter.
Exactly. So I would use him for either or. I wouldn't use him for one specific title to do both items. I would just use them for either or. But I would like to have him in my pocket, so I would use most of my budget on him. And then I think I would just try to pick either people that have been forgotten over the years, try to give them a second chance, or even try to hey, switch over to this format and see if you can build a new audience.
There you go.
Okay. I'm going to do something kind of similar to that. So my format was 3 books or 4 books quarterly, right? Like alternating months. So I'm gonna experiment up front. I'm gonna bring in a really hot comics writer, your Tinian, your James, or your Jeff Lemire, probably Jeff Lemire, because Tinian he's busy. Obviously, he's busy making books that we're all gonna pick for what we're eating next week. So I'm gonna bring in Jeff Lemire as my number one, and then I'm gonna bring in Andrea Sorrentino, like, to work with him. That's an established comics power couple, right? They do a book together, it's gonna sell no matter what it's about. They could write the worst book, but people are going to check it out, and it's probably going to end up being good, even if it's Jeff Lemire's worst book. So that's my number one team. My number two team would be an outside the box pick. I saw in the comments Stephen King, who came to mind when I was thinking about this. I would go for a Stephen King or a Dean Koontz, or who's the dude who wrote the Da Vinci Code, like somebody who's out in the literary world, but not a comics writer as their first job, to try and bring in a voice that obviously has storytelling chops, but is maybe going to bring in some readers who aren't comic readers, right? Stephen King fans are going to come check out his Dark Tower series at Marvel. They did. And it got like 25 volumes.
Would you hire his son, Joe Hill?
Yeah. I would probably hire Joe first, honestly.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's what I was going to suggest. If like,
Joe is primarily a comics writer.
Now that you're saying that, though, I'm calling dibs on M. Night Shyamalan.
You can have him. Your comics will suck.
No, they won't. Are you kidding? I'm talking like his first 3 movies. After that, forget it. He needs a reboot.
He'll give you 2 good books, and then you'll have shit books forever. Great.
I got to quarterback him. I'll keep him on track.
Anyway, I'm gonna bring
just
in
be like a diamond warehouse, anyways. So just have a warehouse full of books.
I'm gonna bring in a Stephen King type, and I'm gonna pair them with a really good artist, like a Steve Epting, or an I don't know, somebody with like a fine line, maybe Sean Phillips, so, whoever would fit. Like, maybe if it's going to be horror, maybe Raphael Albuquerque. I don't know, but I'll match the artist to the style of the book that they want to create. And then for the third one, I'm going to dip into another market that is similar to comics but has its own readership, like manga. Like, I'm going to bring in a really high-end manga writer and whatever artist he would want to work with, whoever he's collaborated or she has collaborated with in the past. And I'm just like, each one of my books is going to be speaking to a different kind of person. And hopefully we get a little bit of each of those people, and then we've got diverse channels, right? Like, we aren't wholly reliant on the direct market of comics. We're not wholly reliant on Stephen King's name. We're not wholly reliant on the gamble that is bringing in a manga team. And I don't know, like, that's not necessarily what's going to work or a guarantee, but I think that it's something that hasn't necessarily been tried, and it's casting a lot of rods, right? You're more likely to catch a fish with 3 rods than you are with 1. If we put all our eggs in the direct market basket, we're it's a finite pond. But I don't know. I don't know if I have the right answer. Some of the stuff you guys were saying throughout all 3 of these questions have made some amount of sense to me, and it's definitely got me rethinking what my approach would be on some level.
So we need to start comic book food chain publishing, is what I hear.
Listen, running a publisher is the most miserable part of the comic book food chain, and it's why we don't have a publisher on this panel, because they don't have time.
Well, we'll have to talk Gunn into it next time he comes on. But yeah, these are great. Like, you guys got me thinking way outside of my comfort zone, because my picks were all in my comfort zone. I've told this to Laura since we started Bird City Comics. I will not make a bad decision, because I don't want to have that up and down roller coaster. I want that consistency, which there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not very much fun sometimes. Sure.
Yeah. No, I totally get it.
I want to add on a little bit more to my answer. So, you know how I said, like, I would print out like an, exclusive for a convention and stuff like that. I would try to hire like some of my favorite artists, like Tyler Kirkham or even Ji-Hung Lee, as you can see on these prints over here. I would try to get them to like do like, exclusive with them, if their contracts allow it or whatever, because I know like some of them have exclusives to like certain stores or whatever. So if it's possible. Yep.
Tim, if you could just bring up the second to last comment from Chad Cave, I would appreciate that. The one that starts with "is trust," which I think is supposed to be "I'd trust." I just thought that this was a great comment. I'd trust Kevin Feige with my wife. I wouldn't trust Ant with her, but Feige is the man.
Look at his face. Don't trust me.
I would trust her with Ant. I wouldn't trust Ant with her.
Ooh.
Yeah, she's not going to go after him, but he might go after her.
What? Look at this. There's charm. This is a package deal here.
That is the face of overcompensation, my friend. I'm kidding. Oh man! All right, let's kill the deck. We don't need this up anymore. But that was a good conversation. Like honestly, like this isn't what we planned to talk about tonight. We kind of made it up at the last minute because like I said, Garrett had to jump out. But honestly, I think it was good. It was round, and for the first time in a couple of weeks, I think that we've really highlighted that each of us are coming at this from a very different place. Obviously, I'm coming from the best and correct place, but like I said, you guys have some valid points, and you've got me thinking.
I'm not investing in Gogol Publishing.
There's a reason I wear the crown around here.
Yeah, I'm not paying your down payment for your mansion or whatever.
Yeah, right. It came with a yoga studio.
I told you guys I didn't get that house.
Oh, I didn't hear that part.
Laura liked that house. I will say she said it was
nice,
gorgeous.
I love that.
It was also twice the amount of money I was going to pay for a house, which is why I'm still here in this. But we hope you guys enjoyed tonight's conversation. It was definitely a little bit different than we've been doing the last couple of weeks, but we want to keep things a little bit varied around here. We want to try different things. If you dug it, definitely let us know in the comments and all that stuff we're supposed to say because it's a YouTube show. Sure. But honest to God, we want to make stuff that you guys are interested in. So if you did like it, let us know. And if you want to see us tackle something else in this manner, the sort of format of the show is that we have these viewpoints. So if there's a topic you guys are interested in kind of getting that discussion about, let us know wherever, Instagram comments here. Yeah. I don't care. Just email it, mail it to me with like a letter. People still do that. Whatever.
No, that's perfect. Yeah. And hopefully you guys learn some stuff today. You guys get a little bit from each one of our mindsets because again, it's your dollar. We're talking about comics. You spend money on comics. Now you get a little taste of how my brain works in charging you for comics. Get a little bit of how Frank works on how he creates to get you to buy said comics, and Yi and his wishful thinking of his dream team.
I honestly, like, I love being on this because I like listening to Aaron talk about the way he does it because it's free data, right?
Yeah,
he's telling me exactly what he's looking for, and if he's looking for it, that means other people are probably looking for it. Then you just filter that through what you're saying as a retailer, what you're looking for, because you know what most people are buying. Like this is an exercise in me learning how to make the perfect comic. And speaking of the perfect comic, we have a slide for that coming up. But first, Tim, if you will. Wait, I gotta click on the thing. We'll cut that in post. There is no post. If you guys haven't checked it out already, we posted this morning what we're reading for this week. That's our comic book picks for today, the 25th, and 5/26, which is tomorrow, Wednesday, comic book day. We had some really good conversation about our picks this week. We had to impose moving forward a no James Tynion rule. So we look forward to the next couple of episodes. But when we're done here, if you're looking for just a little more comic book food chain, head over and check that out. And give it a thumbs up and all that bullshit.
And then you get a little taste of what I have to edit, like at the beginning.
Yes, Yi edits our videos, and he does an excellent job. That is his huge contribution around here, and we are super grateful. Next week, we are going to have Tales from the Flip Side's very impressive, always educational Nico on with us to chat about comic book speculation. We're not a speculation show. That's Flipside's space. Yi goes over there to do that there, but it is part of the comic book realm, and it is something we'd like to talk about for an episode. And we're really looking forward to that. I love talking with Nico. He's super smart. He knows everything. I don't know if it's research before every episode or if he's just some kind of fucking dictionary, but the man knows everything. We're really looking forward to that. God willing, he won't cancel on us at the last minute because of an emergency. If not, we'll be talking about our favorite Pokemon. But we'll probably have Nico on next week. So if you've been watching tonight and you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. we're crawling up on those giveaways, the 900 and then the 1,000. We're also on Instagram. You can follow us at Comic Book Food Chain. We're also on Twitter. You can follow us at CB Food Chain. Any one of those is great. Obviously, the big one is following us here on YouTube, where we do the show.
The tube.
Yes. So if you haven't, hit the subscribe button. And if you have, and you've been watching us and you've been liking this, hit the fucking bell.
Yes.
We took a look at the analytics and the numbers on the inside, and something like 20% of you have notifications turned on. No one's holding a gun to your head. If you don't want notifications, you don't want to know when new episodes are coming. That's totally up to you guys. But if you like what we're doing and you want to not miss it, hit the little bell. It's right there at the bottom of the screen right now while you're watching. It takes 1 second, one click, and that helps us. We want to get views up. We want to give you guys content that you're enjoying, and that's one more way for us to make sure that you're making sure you get it. So if you haven't, hit the little bell with the ears. Is that the ringing motion next to it? I don't know, but hit it. And we're gonna look at the numbers. It's like Santa Claus's list. We're checking twice.
Hit it real good, guys. Yeah.
If that number goes over 30%, Yi will do a striptease next week.
Absolutely. He'll twerk on the wall behind him.
So those
or I'll give away another book.
Yeah.
That sounds like a better idea, and we'll probably get sued if we do the other one. Anyway, like we talked about early in the episode, we're slowly ticking away towards that 900 milestone for subs. We're going to be giving away the Sam Wilson Captain America #1 hip hop variant. We've mentioned this before. You did a real quick eBay search and saw what this was going for, and immediately regretted offering it as the giveaway. But we want to give you that. If you're a speculator, you're a flipper, it's easy money in the bank. If you're a collector, this is a great one for the collection. So sub the channel for your chance to be one of those people. We're going to do the Canto #1 when we hit 1,000. And then one quick reminder, I've got a book coming out at the end of June. FOC is in 2 weeks. If you want to support me as a creator, please pre-order this book. If you're a Power Rangers fan or a fan of my work, go pre-order the book. Shit like this super matters, especially for somebody at this point in my career. I've been doing this for 5 years. This is my first sort of big time gig. And while I won't know the numbers like we talked about, Boom will. And if Boom likes the numbers and they see that I bring something to the table in terms of dollars, that means more work.
Absolutely.
And I would fucking love to do more Power Rangers. So if you're into it, if you're into Comic Book Food Chain, you want to support us, if you just want to do something cool for me, go pre-order the book. It comes out on June 30th. FOC is June 7th. So with that said, I think that we're done. I did a lot of the talking tonight.
That's all right. That's all right. You know some stuff about some stuff. It happens. All right, guys. Well, that was it for Comic Book Food Chain. Again, do all the things Gogol told you to do. Do them now. We appreciate all the love and support. Let's do the quick roundtable, guys. Until next time, Frank, hit us with your. We need to find you a new catchphrase because I'm not loving this one, but let's go with it.
All I do is win, and that's all I'm gonna do.
I thought your gimmick was changing every week, but I guess not.
Until somebody beats him.
Yeah, I'll change it when one of you beats me, which will likely be never.
Oh my goodness.
Let's talk about the first Drunko Vision.
All right.
Big shout out showed up. Thank you for showing up. But I see a lot of new names in here. Let's see. Let me go back to the list. Or maybe I just never pay attention to the chat. Let's see. I see Kevin Arnada, Leftover Zaggy, Andrew Lee. I've seen that name before. What's going on, Will Schindel? I know you. I see Comic Aficionado, which I think is Jin. I saw Lucy earlier. Chad Cave, thank you. And I saw Eric S. Hurd. How's it going? Rookie of the Year. Dave Durr, what's up?
I love that we have regulars. Thank you guys so much. Like I can be a little bit of a funny jerk and like say some stuff that's
and they go that's just Frank.
Yeah, but like let me be real for a second. We do this for fun. We don't have any agenda. We're not trying to get whatever it is when you make money from YouTube. What is that called? I don't even know what it's called.
Monetization.
Yeah, that's the one. We're not trying to like sell you guys anything except for my comics sometimes. But honest to God, we do this for fun. We do this as a way to unwind. We do this as a way to be thinking about comics. And that you guys are here week in and week out. It means a lot. Like that's all there is to it. Like I'm not gonna like dig into that anymore. It means a lot. So thank you guys.
So big shout out to everybody that watched tonight. Again, we'll see you guys next week. Until then, stay hungry, y'all.